Morning, folks. Welcome. Product ownership is a team sport. Anthony did all of that, so I'm not going to go deep into it. I will say the one thing I would like to point out, the oath of non-allegiance. This is something that I think we really matters in our industry. There is a lot of dogma in the Agile space at the moment, and it's time we started getting pragmatic. Alistair Coburn came up with the oath of non-allegiance, and I can't quote it perfectly, but basically it says we will not exclude from consideration any ideas, no matter what their source, but we will examine them and see whether they are useful in our context. So I'm going to look a little bit about what the product owner role is and what it isn't, project types, and explore that. Then I will present my ideas about this team that's responsible for product ownership, a little bit about value, and if we have time, maybe one or two techniques. And then we'll wrap it up. So here is the Scrum Guide 2013 definition of the product owner. Responsible for maximizing the value of the product and the work of the development team. How this is done may vary widely across organizations, Scrum teams, and individuals. The product owner is the sole person responsible for managing the product backlog. Easy, right? Damn nigh impossible. I'm going to give you 3 minutes, get to know somebody sitting next to you. Those of you who were in Anthony's session, you can just borrow from what he said. But what are some of the anti-patterns? What are some of the challenges that you have seen? I'm not going to write them up, we're going to call them out afterwards. So take 3 minutes, meet somebody you haven't met before, and talk about things that could go wrong with product ownership. See, how many of you have been to Agile training before? Fair number of people have been to Agile training. Excellent. So what are some of the things that you came up with? Just call them out and I'll repeat them so that they don't get lost. Lack of trust. Time poor. Lack of ownership. Lack of availability, too busy.
Lack of understanding what the product owner is.
Lack of understanding what the role is. Focused on the solution, not the problem. There was something about architecture.
Owning the team, not collaborating.
Owning the team, not collaborating.
I want all the things, so I don't care what order you do them.
Everything is critical. Right, so reluctance on the team's behalf to actually challenge and to step on the toes. Yeah. Not involved enough with the team. The product owner is the seagull. Flies in, screams a lot, craps all over the place, flies out. Yeah. More than one product owner? Yeah. Lack of acknowledgement of the role. Product manager, product owner relationships. Mm-hmm.
Too parochial, they advocate their own particular hobby horse rather than representing.
Right, too parochial. I want this because it's nice. It's what Anthony called the shiny things. Nice shiny things, yeah. Oh. All easy to fix, right? There it is. Yeah, no. And part of it is I don't think, and tomorrow I'm going to slightly contradict myself because I'm going to be talking about no projects. But the types of work that we do there is no one size fits all. And unfortunately, and this does come back to the dogma that we see in the Agile community very often, is we want to follow a defined set of rules, and if you just do Scrum exactly according to the book, you will be all right. Or if you follow the practices of XP, somehow it will magically happen. But when you actually talk to the originators of those methods, every one of them is saying, no, here is the context in which that worked. Make it work in your context, please. Do not take what we have written down and treat it as gospel. Because every environment is different. The complexity. Now, are we dealing with a problem that's been solved before, or are we doing something different? Way back when Noah was using computers to direct the Ark, I learned assembler and COBOL programming, early 1980s. And in that era, the types of problems that we were solving were automate an existing business process. And the rules were really simple. And your interface had one choice. It was green or orange. And it was 25 characters wide, 25 characters deep, lines deep and 80 characters wide. You didn't have a lot of UX. We inflicted it upon people. The problems we face today are a lot more complex. If we just think of the UX component, the user experience, we're dealing with things from this to that, and every device in between. I was at QCon San Francisco and listened to a wonderful talk about calm technology and designing systems where the interface is a voice. And how do we do that in such a way that we're not shouting at people? How many of you are doing voice interfaces today? It's coming. We might be building on top of existing products. We've got 30 years of technical debt that we're paying back. Or maybe we're trying a little experiment. Or this is it, where we're doing the last little bit of budget, and if this fails, we go out of business. Or maybe there's no technology involved and we're just changing people's lives with the business process. And every one of those has a completely different way of working. Some of you might be familiar with this one. The small co-located team, generic skills, the expert engaged customer, right there. Absolutely clear terms of reference in less than 12 months. User-centric, web-based technologies, simple technology stack. Dedicated customer SMEs. Absolute clarity of vision and dedicated teams. When did you last work on one of those? I did, 1987. It was fun. It was wonderful. Since then, no. We call it the Cinderella Project. Jutta Ekstein called it the Cinderella Project in a Better Software article in 2008. It's a fairy tale. Here's your project. Conflicting stakeholders in 9 different time zones. Technology stacks that are still evolving. Maybe you are building on that 30 years of technical debt. The team is spread in 7 locations. 4 of them are not employed by you, but they're outsourced partners. And we're integrating with them. Yeah. What works there doesn't work here. And I come back to that oath of non-allegiance. Philippe Christian gives us a really nice model for looking at what are the things that influence the context in which we work. He calls it the Octopus model. There are 8 arms. I didn't get fancy and do graphics. You don't want to see me drawing graphics. Size. How big is this beast? And I don't care what unit of measure we use. We know the difference between a small project and a big one. Criticality. If this thing goes wrong in the production environment, how many people die? Or do we lose some money? Or is there a spelling mistake on a website? Or do we get slightly embarrassed? Or if you're a government department, does the minister's name go into the headlines? Yeah, that's about the same as killing people. What's your business model? Are you building products to sell? Are you an internal IT department? How stable is the architecture that you're working on? Has it been around for a while? Is it a solid stack? How distributed are your teams? Where are people located? What's your governance model? Are you a finance institution? Or are you a startup? What's the rate of change? In the telecoms world today, the average lifespan of a product is 7 days. Now, a product that a telecoms organization sells is typically a combination of handset, data, voice, call services, and various other services. That single product is available for about 7 days before something changes. Now, in the telecom space, they're really good at rebuilding those product packages. They've figured out how. On the other hand, I worked with the government department in Wellington, who shall remain nameless, and their business processes were defined, a lot of them, in 1842. I think a number of the people in the department were there when they defined the processes. And somewhat linked to the stable architecture, how old is the product that you're building on? And these are all factors that you have to take into account when you look at what approach are we going to take. Not just from a product ownership perspective, but from the way that we will do work perspective. So what is product ownership? The skills. We need to do product management. Oh yeah, you have to be good at marketing, be an advocate for the business and the customer and the end user, and understand all of them. And oh, by the way, be a domain subject matter expert, good at analysis, user experience and graphic design, come up with innovations, communicate it well, make good decisions, and don't fall foul of the law. You also wear your underwear on your outside and can leap tall buildings in a single bound. That is fundamentally impossible for a single human being on any reasonably complex product, is the assertion that I make. Hence, team. And we need team members' skills that are looking inwards and looking outwards. We need some that are looking outwards towards our customers, our users, our key stakeholders, and others that are looking inwards towards the development, the analysis, the technical skills, if you are building software products. If you're not building software products, you will need other technical skills. And one of the things that we're seeing a lot lately is the application of agile development ideas outside of software. There's 2 really important roles, and Anthony, thank you for mentioning the value team facilitator. And at the other side of it, the delivery team facilitator. In Scrum, they call them the Scrum Master and the Product Owner. We could call it the Value Manager, the Iteration Manager. One And it really is important that these are two separate roles taken by two different people, because there is a healthy tension between those two roles. But what's in that left-hand side, or right-hand side, sorry, where you're sitting, what are some of the skill sets that are needed? We need that facilitation, and, oops, bug in the slide. That should actually say value team facilitator. We need, if you're part of a more complex organization, you might need project management. You certainly need some governance and an interface to the broader governance community. You might need, especially if you're working in a highly regulated environment, such as healthcare or possibly pharmaceuticals or maybe finance, independent verification validation. You probably need something to do with user experience. You need business expertise, the subject matter experts. You need somebody who is that champion or visionary about why this thing matters. You need business analysis skills. Now, these are skills that are needed. They are jobs to be done. They are not job titles. And that's really important. But another thing that's really important is that there has to be an arbiter, that value manager, the value team facilitator. And it's the metaphor that I use is the team captain in a sports team. We'll pick soccer. Everybody knows where we are headed, where the goal is. The captain sets the broad strategy for the whole team. But when the ball arrives in front of you, nobody stops and says, "Captain, can I kick it?" We're working together towards a common goal, but in the pauses when we figure out how do we want to work together, the captain is the one that's facilitating and sometimes making decisions. And that is part of that responsibility is the ability to make decisions when necessary. As much as possible, we want decision-making to be collaborative. But there are times when, yes, it's almost a benevolent dictatorship. Now, to balance things, and there it comes back, the value team facilitator. We also, and this is looking at a team who are building a software product, we need analysis, testing, architecture, technical leadership, engineering skills, appropriate to the product space that we're working in. But this is a single team with different focuses from the team members. Does this make sense? Am I talking through a hole in my head? Well, yes, I am. Take 2 minutes. How does this apply in your organizations, please? And where are the gaps? Where are the problems with this model? Yeah, talk to the person you were talking to earlier. Wonderful how we've been trained to that, isn't it? Thank you, folks. So, challenge it. Does it make sense? That's pleasant, thank you. Done and dusted. The whole team is responsible for delivery of value, and the Scrum Master, the delivery facilitator, is part of that team. And they're looking at team health and process health. And if an unhealthy team will deliver bad products. So facilitating that team health is really important. It seems very flexible, but that's not a criticism. Yep, I hope it is very flexible. It's about that pragmatism that I see missing in a lot of agile organizations today, or organizations adopting agile practices. There is that dogma, and there's not the pragmatism. And I do believe that that dogma is getting us in trouble. We're not achieving the potential that Agile was supposed to give us. Because we're blindly following a recipe that is not appropriate for the work that we're doing. One of the things that product ownership really should be about is looking after the backlog. How many of your organizations have a backlog for a single team that has more than 100 items in it? How many of those items have been there for more than 12 months? Are you ever going to work on something that has been in the backlog for 12 months? Why is it still there? Because we might forget about it, so nobody adds it again. I'm sorry, this is just cluttering up the whole team's concentration and mind space. I would contend that if an item has sat on a backlog for more than the 90 days at maximum, it will never become important enough to be done. Kill it. There might be a few organizations where the cycle time is longer than that. But the reality is, if it's sat there for longer than 90 days, other things are coming in that are more important, and just kill it. But that also means that we've got to look at our backlog in a completely different way. Think of it not as a monolithic list, but as a funnel. I've done a fair amount of work with diamond mines over the years. And the kimberlite field diamond mines, where they're blasting rocks out of the ground, not the alluvial mines where they're panning for gold, for diamonds in sand. And those rocks start off as about 2-ton chunks up there somewhere in the grinder. And then they get broken up. And they get broken further and further, and eventually you get the gems out the bottom. And oh, by the way, 90+% of what we thought was going to be in there is gone. In fact, in the diamond industry, it's 99.99995% of what was in there is gone. That's probably the appropriate proportion for most backlogs, by the way. A huge amount of what we think we need does not deliver that value that we're looking for. The Pareto principle applies. 80% of value comes from 60% of the features. Jeff was reminding us of the Standish Group surveys, and yes, there's a lot of suspicion about their methodology, but they do say that in a lot of products, 60% of the features are not being used. There's a huge amount of wasted effort building stuff that people don't want. If we can take an ore grinder approach to our backlog, we might actually be able to build just the things that matter. Because delivering, thank you, Jeff, for delivering more crap quicker really doesn't add value. So our backlog needs to be refined constantly. It needs to start off as big chunks. And one of the most important parts of product ownership is taking responsibility for facilitating the grinding up of the backlog, throwing away most of what's in there, and making sure that we do deliver the things that really matter. Because we don't measure the right things. Most organizations, we're quite good at measuring the orange line, velocity. And teams become very predictable in their velocity. We can tell you how long they're going to take to build stuff. What we suck at is measuring the value line. I contend that for most products, there is an S-curve to value. At the beginning, the stuff we're doing is about learning. We're ascertaining and mitigating the important risks. The can we do this? The should we do this? And a really important one, can these people do this? The social risk. And if we're careful with our definition of MVP, we get to a point where we've done enough of the learning that we've figured out we're going in the right direction. Then we have a period when what we're delivering are the things that really matter. These are the ones that are going to shift the dial from a value perspective. And it's great, and the team velocity feels good, and everyone loves it. But we come to a point where the value of the next item in the backlog is less than the cost of producing that item in the backlog. And the S-curve flattens out at the top. Now, if we measure people, as many organizations do, in making sure that we have delivered to time and scope and budget, well, we'll get the orange line every single time. On the other hand, I want to do that. And value management is looking and knowing when that line is flattening out and stopping work. Bringing a different backlog to this team. Not disband the team. We don't want people to feel afraid that, oh no, if we stop early, they'll disband the team and we'll lose this wonderful momentum of working together. No, bring a different backlog, a different part of the product or a different product entirely. But you need to remove that fear, because otherwise we'll never be able to actually determine when that flat line is. Because it's fun working in a productive Agile team, isn't it? It really is. And that's one of the challenges of Agile, is it's fun working in a productive Agile team, and I don't want to let go of this. And here's one of a hint for tomorrow's talk on no projects. Our project culture almost always causes us to disband teams just when they become really productive and effective. I'll give you a minute for this one. In your organizations, is it possible to have that conversation? To say, we've done enough on this product. And if not, why not? So have a chat. Thank you, folks. Can I have a quick show of hands? How many of your organizations have recently actually managed to kill a project or stop a stream of work because of the value focus? There's a few. It's actually pretty good. It's probably about 10%. Wow. So 90% of you have got no chance at all of actually stopping work on something that's no longer valuable.
I want to qualify by saying that it's not as if we actually made that decision to stop because we looked at this and said, oh, is that enough? It was, we usually stop because we don't have any more time left.
Right, so we didn't stop because we've maximized the value, we stopped because we ran out of time. Oh, I suppose that's one way of doing it.
Or we're running out of money.
Or we're running out of money, the budget's finished. Or shifting priorities. Yeah. Now, shifting priorities is actually a really good reason to stop. But don't disband the team. No. Bring a different backlog to that team. Yeah. Okay, thank you for that. Just to give you some practical tools to help make these hard trade-off decisions. This is a quote from Jim Highsmith that has been a mainstay for me since I read it, and it goes back to 2007, and it still applies. The number one challenge of Agile project management is creating a culture of innovation. Everything else pales in comparison. Agile projects often attempt to implement the new, the untried, and the nearly impossible. This is not the problem domain in which controlling tasks to achieve a fixed plan will succeed. This is a problem domain that demands the innovative exploration of possibilities. How much of the work that you are doing is about the innovative exploration of possibilities? Because that's where value comes from in today's economy. The easy problems have been solved. Let's find the things that really matter. And let's learn. But don't throw the baby out with the bathwater, please. You know, I was really thrilled with Anthony's talk that he actually explicitly called out the relationship between product owner and business analyst. Because all too often I hear we don't need no stinking business analysts, we're agile. Yeah. I've also heard we don't need no testing, we're agile. Yeah, no, tragile. There are a lot of good ideas that have been around for quite a long time. Leverage that knowledge. But put it in the context of the Agile Manifesto and of the mindset that embodies this way of working. This is a model that I personally have found really powerful and hard to have conversations about, or to have it's a tool for hard conversations. This comes from the book by Pollyanna Pixton, Troy McGuinness, Kent MacDonald, and for the life of me I've forgotten, Stand Back and Deliver. And it's called the Purpose Alignment Model. Now, I want you, as we go through this, to think about the nature of the work that you are doing in the initiatives you're working on, and what the implication of a model like this is. Down on the bottom left are things that are critical to our mission, but really don't differentiate us in the marketplace. These are some things we absolutely have to do well. Financial accounting would be a good example for most organizations. Unless you are an accounting firm, doing accounting well is important, but it's not what you advertise in the marketplace. You know, we don't, at Software Education, we don't go, buy your training from SoftEd because our accounts are good. But it is very important that our accounts are accurate. So in that parity space, find out what the standards are, find out what the industry norm is, go and borrow what somebody else has done and apply it. Don't spend a huge amount of time doing more than what is necessary to do this well, because it's not giving you any competitive advantage. Up on the top left is something that makes a difference in terms of our market differentiation, but doesn't matter much in terms of mission criticality. SoftEd is a training company. For us, something that falls into that space is food on courses. Now, people care about the food that they get, but I don't believe anybody comes to one of the SoftEd classes because the food is good. But it does improve the experience. So for us, we actually, and this is a slight advert, we take you out to a restaurant for lunch if you come to a class in one of the SoftEd offices in either Brisbane or Wellington. We partner with people who do food really well, for whom food is their business. We know that we're not great at food, we're good at teaching. But it improves your experience. Then down the bottom left are things that another version of this calls the who cares things. They are not critical to our mission, they don't differentiate us in the marketplace. Please do not spend thousands of dollars and years of time trying to figure out which email package to use. It doesn't matter. They all pretty much work at the same level. They're good enough. This frees you to focus on the top right, to put the organization's funds, effort, money, time into the things that differentiate us in the marketplace and are critical to our success. The competitive advantage things. Now, I picked in the Parity one on financial accounting quite deliberately. I have seen millions of dollars, and I mean millions of dollars, wasted in organizations implementing large ERP systems because we're different. And we spend 2 years customizing SAP. Why? When it's a Parity application. Because you get absolutely no competitive advantage from it. But a why that I often see is because the finance department's got the money. So if you want budgets approved for other things, you keep finance on side. Yeah, wrong. Another tool is the simple one of the product vision. How do you convey the compelling value in your product to your teams? And beyond the team to the rest of the world. And this vision statement structure forces us. One of the greatest things to do is to work as a team and come up with this early on in your product development. What are we doing this for? Who's it for? Why does it matter? What is that compelling reason and compelling differentiator? And if you can do that, then you have a North Star that your team can follow and work towards. And from a product ownership perspective, people make good decisions when they know why. Well, this is a way of embodying the why. Another tool, the Kano model, and I am running out of time, so I will just point you to Wikipedia, do a search for Kano analysis. It really helps to find which pieces should we deliver. And coming back to innovation, imagination is more important than knowledge. And imagination is one of the most important skills of product ownership. Being able to envisage that future. So to wrap up, my feeling is the product owner role is good and it's important, but it's fundamentally flawed. Our projects are complex and varied. Product ownership needs a team. Diverse skills and viewpoints, focused on value, re-examine your backlog, and yes, there are some tools and techniques that can help.
Let's give him a round of applause.
Thank you.